I'm Billy Reed. I've been covering thoroughbred racing since 1964.
I'm Bill Doolittle. I introduced Billy Reed to the racetrack. And I'm
Tara Bassett. This is Take It From Tara on Wagon Wednesday. How exciting are we to be bringing you the greatest in horse racing? And we are so lucky to be hosted by a lovely man named Pat. And you'll recognize the place that he owns. It's called Pat's Steakhouse. The finest steaks in the city of Louisville and possibly in the region.
Amen.
Would you agree? Yeah.
Amen.
Billy's chomped into a couple of those $77
sure
steaks,
have.
I think. Yeah,
77.
there's
Like Sunset Strip steak.
77 Sunset Strip. It's a wonderful opportunity to come in and get fat and happy at the same time.
Everything here is good.
Everything
The
here
oysters, I love the oysters.
Oh my God, it's delicious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys begin by just talking about your extraordinary expertise in horses, because you truly, the two of you have probably written more words on sports, especially on horse racing, than any combination of young sports writers in the city. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
Because I know it's true for you, because you've been around since Eclipse.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
No, but, you've been my idol for a long time. You were writing
Mine
horse
too.
racing. You were writing horse racing. When I was coming up, and there you were, and you were still doing it.
Well, I didn't grow up with horse racing. It's kind of an acquired taste, I guess. But I had a good friend named J.B. Faulkner, who was the PR guy at Keeneland back in the 60s, and he pulled me aside one day and he said, "Billy, if you're going to be a sports writer in Kentucky, you really need to cover thoroughbred racing."
Yes.
And he hooked me up with Joe Hirsch, the executive columnist of the Daily Racing Forum, and I followed Joe around for a few days, and I fell in love with it. Just because there are just so many great stories.
Absolutely.
Where else, what other sport can you be on the backstretch? You're liable to bump into an Arab oil sheik, and then you've got the grooms and hot walkers and those, it's just, and every horse, I don't care what classification it may be, there's a story behind every horse.
Absolutely. It's amazing. And I was just thinking about when you were talking about who's on the backside. It used to be such a small and intimate place to be.
Yeah.
And now it's become a huge corporate environment as well. Yeah. And I don't know, I love everything about Churchill Downs. I miss that intimacy. Because when I started out in the business, and I had just worshipped at the feet of both of you because you were so spectacular.
You go broke that way.
I'm serious. I loved everything that you guys ever did. And, I went out there, the first chance I had to actually write was when Hugh Finn discovered this thing called the World Wide Web. And he decided to do something spectacular, which was write about horses.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God, he and Al Gore worked on it together for years. But he was the first person, I think, really to take advantage of the internet technology that was just born. And then when he had his accident, there were a number of us, I remember Don Schroeder and John Asher, God bless his soul, who went out and took over the writing, so that we felt like when Hugh got better, he'd be able to come back to his business. And unfortunately for all of us, he did not return. But that was my first experience writing at Churchill Downs. And, we'd go out there in the morning, and all it was the horse people and the horses.
I miss that, and I think Bill will agree with me on this. I miss the press box.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have a press
right.
box
That's
out
right.
there anymore to speak of.
Yeah.
And at one time, they had the best press box of any sport in the country. And when you were there on Derby Day, and look around and you see sports writing legends like Red Smith and Jim Murray and Dave Kindred and Bill Knack, and that, I just look forward to that so much, and I enjoyed that so much.
And then all the international press that came in too.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a source of bad information, those guys.
So Churchill Downs has evolved, and we love it. And we have great memories of days gone by, and things have changed now. But we're very, very fortunate that we still have the great quality of reporting and writing that that you guys really kicked off, and you're still very much involved.
Well,
in horse racing.
and Jim Bolus.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
that
course.
was Billy's friend,
And Mike Berry.
and those guys were writing for the paper. I was sort of like a stringer for the paper, and I saw I was never going to get on. Those guys were ahead of me, and there wasn't any way. So I moved on to do something different because it was such a solid bunch of writers there, including Mike, who was so cantankerous and funny.
The Kentucky Irish American.
Oh my gosh! Well, when we were in those press boxes, I remember Asher gave me my first opportunity to report, and he gave me credentials and sent me when I was an intern at Wave Radio. Sent me to the track, told me to go to the 6th floor, and when the doors opened of the elevator, just start talking to people. And I had the opportunity
The
to
Buck
do that.
Weaver elevator.
I tell you what, and I know. And I got out the elevator, and there was Livy Newton-John, and President Ford was there, and Chuck Norris was there, and I mean the excitement.
Yeah.
And of course, Millionaires Row has expanded a lot too. And for Breeders' Cup, Churchill Downs just has gone completely neutron. I mean, everything there has grown and expanded, and there are so much more available to people who are coming in to the races. But what you guys have always focused on, and what I want to focus on today, is what is happening with the horses. There are a lot of horses in the Breeders' Cup. The races are incredible. There's a huge amount of money at stake. And I just really want to hone in today, and we're going to start with you, Bill, because Billy and I are totally dominating the conversation.
No, that's all right. I'm certain that I'm going to get in here.
You are going to get in here right now. And thank you for being on my show last year or the year before. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad that we're doing it again. Tell me.
It was fun is when you were doing a radio show because, the radio, you got the mic sitting there and you can lean back like this. And we always drank beer when we were on your show.
You can drink beer. Look, they brought you Coke. Michelle and Pat have such a... See, look at how fabulous you look there.
That does look pretty good.
On that little monitor. And I love Pat's Steakhouse and the beauty of this place with all of the racing. And it was your idea, Billy. Thank you. The beauty of the racing history that is embodied in this place. And we're in the room where Shug McGahee and Bob Baffert and so many other wonderful trainers have come to celebrate their private celebration of their Derby victories. So you can imagine.
If these walls could talk.
Exactly.
Bill and I would have stories to write forever.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what they would say.
What's that?
Is that the fifth Breeders' Cup race on Friday, Baffert's got the favorite game winner, and the top contender is McGahe's horse.
Isn't that amazing?
Even though most people will think it's complexity that Chad Brown's got. But I think that the one that Shug has got is the only one that can beat Game Winner.
So isn't it amazing?
Since you just brought it up, I thought I might as well start
those two
counting.
names right there, and these guys.
But you won't get a price on either one of them.
No, these guys have such a remarkable memory for details. So I'm going to ask you first, Bill. Explain the difference between what the Breeders' Cup actually means and just standard racing like the Triple Crown. What's the difference?
Well, I think I'm pretty good at this because I covered the first Breeders' Cup in 1984 at Hollywood Park for the Breeders' Cup. I was on the notes team, and Billy knows what that is. That's people that go out and work for the event and get out and talk to all the trainers and jockeys and stuff and gather up notes and then type them up and then distribute them to all the press that's there.
Right.
And so I did that. It was really a lot of fun. The deal of the Breeders' Cup is, and I believe that you covered when they decided to have it at their off luncheon.
That's correct.
You were there, I think. But the idea of the Breeders' Cup is there's the Derby in the spring. It's for one age horse, 3-year-olds, mostly colts. We have all these other horses in the world, and the idea of the Breeders' Cup is to have fall championship races for all kinds of horses. For example, we have 2-year-old horses, we have male horses and female horses, and horses that run long distances, and horses that run short distances, and horses that run on turf, and horses that run long on turf. And so it started out, there were, I think, 7 races to start with, and now it's 14. And it was 8 for a lot of years. And so you have all these categories in which there's a championship at the end, because all horses aren't the same. 2-year-olds can't beat 5-year-old horses.
Right.
They're just too young and not mature enough. And older fillies, though, do win sometimes, especially distance races. And one in this year's events called Enable, and she's probably the star of the whole thing, flying over from England. And she just won the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe
Wow.
in Paris for the second time. And she's the number one ranked horse in the world, and she'll be at Churchill Downs. So
cool.
The thing about it is, make a long story even longer, is to get these championships up, the breeders of racehorses started the event and they funded it.
Got it.
And they fund it in the breeding by the stallions. When you pay money into the things like futurity, and they sell as many horses for more money over to go to Europe as they do the race here in the United States. And
Gosh, isn't that just amazing?
so that's where we're going to have all these international horses here.
I'm excited about the international horses, and I also want to say Caroline Knopp says hi to Billy Reed from the Knopp family. Alan Miller and Kathy Lennon. Tony Hyatt are watching us. Tony from the courthouse downtown, or from the City Hall, I guess. Caroline loves Pat's Steakhouse. Daryl Lavery, who is a judge candidate, is watching us. Ellen Elizabeth Jones says, me too, Caroline. Mary Kay Corfage, Angela Cornett, and Cassie Simon from Washington, D.C.
Excellent.
You remember Bob Simon, who was our meteorologist on 32, and his wife, Cassie. They watch us all the time, and they wish that they were here. And whenever something big is coming up, Louisville-oriented, Cassie always says, oh, I really miss Louisville. I wish I were there. So here you are, Cassie, watching us. Bill Doolittle and Billy Reed join me today on Take It From Tara's Wagon Wednesday to talk about horses, and in this particular case, the Breeders' Cup. Do you guys go to the? Go ahead, Billy.
Tara, let me Tara, I'm going to get it right.
You're good.
To follow up on something Bill said, the Breeders' Cup was the brainchild of John Gaines, whose family made their fortune with the Gaines dog food. And he had Gainesway Farm, brilliant guy.
Yes.
He was a patron of the arts, just very cerebral. He called me up in 1982, and he said, I'm speaking at the They're Off Luncheon. And he said, I really would like for you to come because I'm going to say something I think you'll find interesting.
Isn't that neat?
Well, Mr. Gaines, I had tremendous respect for him, so naturally I went. The only other turf rider there was Joe Hirsch, and he announced the concept of the Breeders' Cup. He called it at the time, it was like, what was it, Bill? The World's Championship Day of Races. It
always had the world champion aspect to it.
And the richest day of racing, I think.
But he had gotten his fellow breeders, as Bill said, to support it, to underwrite it. And his goals were, first of all, he wanted it to be thoroughbred racing's answer to the World Series or the Super Bowl.
Cool.
He wanted the national TV audience. And he wanted to keep the program short. Initially, I think there were 7 races.
Yes.
Because he felt like that if you go beyond that, you start getting into these more arcane championships that really confuse. Yeah, that really confuse the guy out there that doesn't know a heck of a lot about racing. So he wanted to keep it to 7 races. Well, now they've gone
doubled.
to 2 days. But by and large, I think it's been. I think Mr. Gaines would be overall very, very pleased with how it's worked out. And a special one, Bill, was when American Pharaoh won up at Keeneland, because to have a Triple Crown winner come back to Central Kentucky,
yes,
where the whole thing got started.
Isn't that amazing?
I thought that was a special day.
That is a special day. Well, I always laugh when people confuse the word that they use. The greatest 2 minutes in sports becomes the fastest 2 minutes in sports. Whatever.
Yeah.
They call it the richest 2 days in sports. Yeah. So I love the fact that we're hosting it.
I'll tell you something else too, Bill. I did the story for the Saturday Morning Courier, and they stripped it across the top of the Metro section. I go to the press box that afternoon, and the first guy that comes up to me is Andy Byer, Washington Post. And he says, well, Billy, I read your story today, and let me tell you why it's not going to work.
Well, of course, that's probably because, you were the only one invited. There was this.
Yeah, that's
they had no idea how to do promotion, and they really got very lucky with getting hooked up with NBC.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They got it straightened out pretty well after a while.
It certainly made Tom Hammond's career. Our
Absolutely.
friend from Lexington. He was on that first broadcast, and his career took right off. He became a superstar for them.
Yes, absolutely. So, Bill, you've got a whole laptop or tablet full of stats for us. And I want to know, going into the Breeders' Cup, so we're going to deal with the same situation that we always deal with at Churchill Downs. Parking's going to be a challenge.
Well, just to stop you right there.
Okay, go ahead.
The greatest improvement in parking of modern times has occurred at Churchill Downs.
Yes.
Now I don't know if it's really going to work, but it's pretty in the drawings, and they had it for the, they have the new parking lots, and it's been a long time coming, and the actual Churchill Downs has gotten bigger.
Much bigger, yeah.
The parking area has gotten more. It's one central thing with, whether it has enough exits and entrances, I don't know. The first time it was open was this year at Derby Day, and of course it stormed and rained all
That's
day.
right.
Oh.
It was really hard to tell how the thing was working.
Right.
But so they have a lot of improvements in the parking, and then the crowd's not as big as Derby Day.
That's true.
70,000 rather than 150,000.
Well, so I have to say that I'm sorry for all the neighbors who want to spend, their days outside with their signs, $25 for parking. We can put your car in our yard for the next few hours. The nice part about Churchill, though, is that expansion that we were talking about. There are many more opportunities for people to go and socialize, and a lot of indoor locations if you're willing to pay the money.
Well, the track is set up for indoor racing.
Yes.
So they've always raced in the fall, or in the spring and the fall, and the fall racing's always been in November, and that track has been set up from day one to have indoor dining rooms, and even the grandstand has a nice covering on it, so it can be raining and cool. November's not the greatest month, but it's really pretty well set up for rainy, cold days.
So we're looking forward to the Breeders' Cup coming in, and we're really looking forward to seeing what these two guys have to offer us, because I'd like to know what the people who are really interested, what they say, inquiring minds want to know. If you're going out to the Breeders' Cup for the first time, you've got to be prepared for a very, very long 2 days, and you're going to want to know what to do, how to bet. Just pace yourself.
Oh no!
No, just blow it all out at once.
No, I think Well, for example, I always give this example. There are more than let's say there's 10 races in a day.
Yes.
And you got $40. Well, they're $50, and you could bet, $5 in each race or something like that, and bet the same amount each race. And if you got to the end, a better number is 9 races, $4 a race, and at the end of that, you've got $36. And if you went out with $40 and you lost every race, you'd be out $40, and it'd be about half as much as it would cost for one steak here at Pat's Steakhouse. So, you could bet like that. You can just spread your money along and do it evenly. But I don't think that's the right way.
You don't do that.
I think you ought to bet $2 on every race and $20 on one race. So if you win, you've got something.
And then you have Billy Reed buy you dinner at Pat's Steakhouse. That's the
right.
key right there. How do you bet, Bill?
I always tell people, when you look at the racing form figures and all that, that
Yes.
can turn a lot of people
It
off.
sure can.
A lot of information, a lot of different, I just tell people that the point is to have fun. Figure out how much you can afford to lose, and when you reach that point, just stop. But if you want to bet on jockeys, if you want to bet on names, if you want to bet on numbers, I promise you that, especially I think at the Breeders' Cup, where there are so many upsets and so
Yes.
many different,
A lot of
variables,
uncertainty.
that just have fun, just enjoy yourself.
Well, give yourself a chance to win. Bet the exactas, What's really particularly good are the pick 3s and pick 4s. If you don't know what that is, just go and partners with somebody who does. Sit in the box with them, and somebody captains the betting, and get involved. Those pick 3s and pick 4s, I mean, they're not paying $20. They're paying $2,000 and $10,000
baby.
and $20,000. They had one that paid, I think, $87,000 last. I picked 4 at.
Oh my gosh!
Of course, I didn't hit it. It was almost impossible. But if you hit the all button, just take every horse in the race.
Wow!
You know, you can. There's stuff out there. There's big prices.
And you're talking about
all
betting on the
day
machines
long.
too. You're talking about betting electronically as opposed to going to the old-fashioned window.
No, I bet at
No?
the window.
Do you? I love to go to the window.
You can bet at home. And
Yes.
That's the thing about the Breeders' Cup, is that you get to. Am I
No,
disconnected?
I just wanted to.
I want everybody to know what
I
I'm
just
saying.
wanted to pull it up. I want everybody to know too. Okay. Go ahead.
All right. You know, today, because of television and the internet, you don't have to go to Churchill Downs to bet, and you don't have to have a bookmaker. Bookmakers are really pretty much non-existent. Twin Spires, TVG, all these platforms, you can watch the races on television and on your computer and bet at home, and all that stuff is available. Pick 3s, part wheels, fandangos, rollovers. It's all
Everything.
there. Everything's there, and it's all open for betting because there's 14 horses in every race. When you start multiplying 14 horses times 14 horses times 14
Yeah.
horses, then this is just the arithmetic
Yeah.
that gets big. So betting today is so much better than the old days when all you had was win, place, and show.
And
That's
the
all.
daily double.
And the daily double is still the worst bet. You know why? Because
Why?
the first 2 races every day are the 2 worst races of the day.
Why?
Because that's where people are just arriving, and they save the best races for later.
Sure.
So if you want to bet on the worst horses, you'll get the lowest prices. Small fields, low prices. But it's you don't have to bet, but it is more fun.
Debbie Horan is watching, and Debbie Hossman also. James Green, thanks for tuning in. Alan Miller, yes, it is sunny for the show, and it is fall. There's no question about that, and it will be fall when Breeders' Cup arrives. It's very, very soon in the fall to be experiencing these cool temperatures that we're having, and we're gonna just hope for good weather for Breeders' Cup, because having it at the very beginning of November is always a risk, just like having Derby in May is always a risk. These 2 seasons are very unpredictable in Louisville. Tell me a little bit about some of the mudders. Who are some of the horses that are going to run really well if we have absolutely disastrously wet weather? And then we'll go to the sunny side.
Well, I will say this: most horses love the mud. Only a few horses don't like mud. It's soft in their feet. What they don't like is being back in the pack and have the spray of the hooves thrown back at them.
Yeah.
But just getting out on a muddy track or a cool day, horses love all that. Their ears are up, they're bouncing around, they like it. Doesn't matter if it rains. Rain doesn't mean anything to a racehorse. It's just they're herd animals.
Just
they
the
live
people
outside.
who are getting rained on, right?
Yeah, but I mean, so who are the mudders? Well, there are certain horses that are real specialists at mud racing. But then again, the tracks are so good today
Yes.
that unless it's actually raining, the track they can get it dry. The track
And
at
our
Churchill
track
Downs.
crews are spectacular.
Yeah, and they have great equipment. They have drains.
Yes.
And they roll the track and squeegee it down, squeeze the water right out of it. Goes right down the drains and goes away. So what's more interesting is the turf, when it's soft or not. So, in general, the European horses have a tremendous advantage on turf to start with. That's the grass racing, especially if it's soft, because they're used to it. And our races, we take the races off the turf if the turf gets soft. We don't run them there. We move them over to the dirt. Consequently, there's very few races run on the American grass that aren't on pretty hard tracks. So if it pours and it's wet on Breeders' Cup Day, they leave them on the turf.
I remember when they installed the turf course, and it seemed like it was a long time ago, but it can't really have been that long ago.
Oh yeah, it was in the
Okay.
90s. Wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah. Okay. Well, it was a long time ago then. It seemed like it was sooner, and it changed the course of racing. at Churchill Downs. There was a whole addition, a whole new level of, of betting and of handling that kind of a course, and of people who were training the horses to do something different than maybe some of them had done before. I love the fact that they added that turf course to Churchill Downs.
Yeah, and the races are run differently. Most American dirt racing is go to the front and keep going.
Yes.
And the horses that get past, they're not really being caught by others so much as the ones in front are getting tired. Turf racing in general is go along in a pack like a herd of horses, and they draft. They don't really draft, they follow each other.
Sure. And
then turn for home and shoot for the finish. So you have a lot of horses at the end that are really flying. It's a whole different kind of racing, and it's nice, but our tracks, you know why the racetracks are oval, don't you?
Don't tell me why.
So it's for the spectators. And Churchill's one of the first oval tracks in the world. It was built in 1875 and was built on the edge of the town. And in racing used to be race on a road or across a field from steeple to steeple, steeplechase. And in Europe, they still have straight courses that are a mile. Mm-hmm. They're built on Lord Fauntleroy's back 40. And real well. That's where the Derby is. It's Epsom.
Yeah.
It's a farm country. And but when Colonel Clark built the Churchill Downs, mm-hmm. he built it on a farm owned by his cousins, and they made the track be oval, so the horses would start in front of you and go around and come back. You can see them all. The track's a mile around. If it was straight at, if you were on an expressway, mm-hmm. and you look ahead, and you're at mile marker 44, and you look ahead at mile marker 45, you can't see it. It's too far away.
That's right.
But at Churchill, it just seems like they go right around in front of you. It's made to be a spectator sport. That's
pretty spectacular. He's just a wealth of all this trivia knowledge, Billy. How can we keep up with
Billy
him?
knows it too. I just butted in.
How can we keep up with him?
I didn't know about Lord Fauntleroy.
I got this immediate vision of the...
You dated his daughter, didn't you?
Oh, maybe. Now that you mentioned it.
I got this thought of pantaloons and little frilly collars. That's what came up with Lord Fauntleroy.
Bill, just listen to you. You did a really beautiful book for Churchill on the Derby.
And you wrote part of it too.
Just a little bit of it. But has there been a book like that about the Breeders' Cup?
Yes, Jay Privman wrote one.
Okay.
And it's several years ago. I think it came out around 2000, 2005, way back there. So there's not one right now. There should be.
We'll start writing.
It's
do it.
Well, maybe. You have to get paid to
write.
write.
I was trying to put the bee in the bonnet.
Yeah, put the bee in his bonnet.
But I mean, it's hard to write about it because there's 200 horses entered for this Breeders' Cup.
God, that's amazing.
That's a lot of subject.
Sure.
And it really is simpler to write about the NCAA basketball champion because there's only one. Or the Derby, and there's only one each year. But, I mean,
I bet races. You could. I'd like to see maybe you write about the 25 greatest Breeders' Cup races, mm-hmm. and then you have an index with all the results and all that kind of stuff. But there have been some really, I mean,
yeah.
One of the top 2 or 3 races I've ever covered was the Distaff in 1988, where Personal Ensign, trying to become the first thoroughbred to retire unbeaten in forever, and looked hopelessly beaten. Up front is the Derby winner, a filly winning colors. Mm-hmm. Goodbye Halo was in there.
You're right.
And I thought there was no chance. And here came Randy Romero and Personal Ensign, and doggone if they didn't win.
Yeah. So a cold, rainy day, and D. Wayne won, I think, 3 races that day.
Yeah.
And that was a spectacular day of racing.
Oh,
you remember when Arazi won?
Yes. Oh.
I want to just remind you guys of the years that these two have been working, because they're talking about far past history for many people. And Billy, when did you start writing?
About racing?
Yes.
64.
Yeah, because you did a lot of other stuff before that too.
Yeah, I covered mainly. I was in Lexington, covered high school
Right.
sports, college sports, whatever.
And Bill, what year did you start?
I didn't start. The first derby I covered for a formal publication was Pleasant Colony in 1981, and I was working for the Courier and covered the losers' quotes.
Oh God, that's awful.
Yeah, that was the job. I'm telling you, I was way down at that was the. They had the kingdom up there at the top with Bill and Jim Bowles and
Dick Fenlon.
and Dick
Dick
Fenlon.
was there. Yeah.
And remember, Dean Eagle used to have he was the columnist for the Courier, and he used to have. You'd read along one day, and he'd have, if you bet on all the favorites, this is what you would have won, or this. He was always putting little notes in columns, and Earl Ruby did it.
Yeah.
Everybody inserted things and had stuff about racing.
Yeah.
I want to just call attention to the fact, I just looked this up because I thought it would be interesting to see. Infield general admission, a 2-day pass for the infield is $63
For the Breeders' Cup?
for the Breeders' Cup. When you get up to section 122, you're $73. And then as you grow through the sections, it gets higher and higher. And then the third floor walk around, the row walk is $530.
For both days?
Apparently so. It says 2-day pass, so I'm hoping that I'm giving the correct information.
Walk around?
Yeah.
That means you don't have a seat.
That's right. The upper clubhouse is $1,303.
That's why we're sports writers.
And
so we can get
millionaires-
passes.
That's right.
That's the whole reason, isn't it? I mean,
Now
just tell them
this
the
is
truth.
this is saying each. I'm sorry. This is saying quantity of 2 tickets. These are prices for each ticket. Millionaires Row 4,
They're going to change that to Billionaires Row.
$1,554,
Yeah.
and it says each. So we're not talking about a pair. It's a 2-day pass, but you're paying for each. So $63 if you want to go to the infield for each person. That's pretty amazing. And availability. It says availability is limited. It says time left on this particular purchase 11:03, and I'm going to back right out of there in a big hurry.
Oh, here, push that.
Push what? No, don't. Only if you give me your credit card. So, and then it's just it's interesting. So go to Breeders' Cup 2018, and it's going to help you with all that stuff. And then it tells you about all the events that are going on around Breeders' Cup, because there's a lot to do in Louisville outside of horse racing. So when you've spent the day, you're going to want to know what restaurants to go to. Pat's Steakhouse is, of course, a priority, but you probably have to make a reservation now
Yeah.
to get in for the Breeders' Cup.
Absolutely.
Or you
or-
can just go up the street up here to the Rover
Irish Rover is
and
good
see,
too.
who's going to be there?
Who?
The Irish grooms and people that come over from Ireland and they
Yeah.
hang out, and not the English.
Yeah, of course not. Michael
Yeah,
and
we got the
Siobhan would
Irish
love
grooms,
that.
and you get all the horses there that, well, they may win.
That's
But
so
when you
funny.
hear about it, it sounds like they're going to win. For
So-
sure.
Pat Francis is Irish, though.
I love Pat Francis.
He's
he was
Irish.
so kind to us today, and I appreciate him so much. And I appreciate the fact that you thought of coming to Pat's Steakhouse. So the Breeders' Cup itself is an extraordinarily expensive undertaking, and a lot of very wealthy people come in. I don't know that there's a lot of celebrity attendance at Breeders' Cup. It doesn't feel to me like a lot of people come flying out here from Hollywood.
No.
Yeah, it's
They
pretty
don't.
much a horse industry, and owners and breeders and families associated with
But
it.
when you consider, one of the things that Mr. Gaines wanted to do was to move it around all over the country.
Yeah.
Right.
And have it different tracks. And now it's pretty much at 4 tracks, 2 in Kentucky and 2 in California. But they're destinations. So if you're a horse lover and go to Keeneland, Central Kentucky, that's just great. And if you're a horse lover and go to Churchill Downs, the world's most famous racetrack, that's great. Or if you like to go, you say, it's November and I think I'll go to California and go to
Probably the better idea.
Santa Anita or Del Mar, see that. So it's a destination for people that really like the races, and not so much for celebrities.
Yeah.
What happened to Belmont Park?
They didn't want to do the work.
Really?
They don't
That's
want to
a
host
shame.
it.
That's a shame.
They just don't want to do it. And I say they, but this is a long time, and the management's changed, and it goes in and out of politics and different people, and who knows. But they really are set up for it too, because it's close to Europe, and they have a big grounds, and you know how many barns they have there, and
Yeah.
You know, and they got New
Lots.
York City, and they get all the houses.
That's a shame.
Yeah, they should be in New York.
Would you like a sip of your Coke?
Oh yeah.
I brought that up
Is it
just for
good?
you.
Is this a spiked one?
I was going to say, I hope not, because I was going to ask you if I could have a little bit more of yours after I'm finished with mine. There we go.
Go right on.
Hi, don't walk across here. We're on live. We're
Oh,
on
come
camera.
on in. You gotta have a hot horse, though.
Yeah, but don't step on this cord, please. Billy Reed and Bill Doolittle join us for a little bit of talk about the Breeders' Cup today, and we're still not getting to the horses. I count on you to tell me where to place my $2 bet.
Well,
Will you give me a hint?
I will give you a hint.
A hint. That's all I asked for is just a hint.
I have 2 hints now. I'll give you 2 hints.
And I will go through Twin Spires because
One
I don't
is
go to the track on those days.
Figure out which, since there are 14 races, there's 5 on Friday, and they're all for 2-year-olds. And I'm recommending one on Friday, and that's Current. And he's in the next to last race. Just like it sounds like a current going down the
Yes.
river. I recommend him.
Okay.
But
Current.
he doesn't have to win. The thing about it is try not to worry too much about whether a horse is going to win or not. The odds are you'll lose.
Listen,
I mean, there's
bought
14 horses in every race, and only one can win.
Yeah.
So the odds, in reality, are 13-1. So when people say, "Well, Doolittle gave me his horse and it lost," and I go, "Well, congratulations, you hit what happens to people when you bet." But what I'm really saying is, figure out what races you wish to follow and know about. I mentioned that filly, who's coming from Europe,
Yes.
Enable.
Yes.
She's in the next to last race on Saturday. So
And you
she's
said the
gonna
last
go,
races are the best ones.
Yes, and the last race I think is around 5:30.
Okay.
I'm not sure on Saturday. I don't want to be held to that. Maybe a little later, and it'll be in the dark.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's.
But then
yeah.
the last time, this time they'll have the lights.
Yeah.
But the first time, you remember when Ali Sheba won?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't see it.
Yep.
It was so
Yeah,
dark.
it
Yep.
was.
It was so dark. But if you watched it on television, you could see it.
Sure.
It's amazing how those
is.
cammers can lighten things up.
It-
It's just
they can.
incredible.
So that's my first piece of advice: is figure out what races you want to watch and what horses are might be in it.
Current.
Okay.
Enable.
And just on Friday, Current in the next to last race,
Okay.
and in the last race, I kind of like Game Winner.
Oh, okay.
So
Game
they're-
winner.
and he's a favorite. And that last race on Friday, that's for 2-year-old colts, and those are the horses who will come back, hopefully, next spring
Yeah.
running the Derby.
Win the Derby.
So that's a good race to keep your eye on. It's the last race on Friday, and the last race on Saturday is the $6 million race for the older, hard-hitting, good horses. So, kind of figure out where you want to go and what you want to see. And if my second piece of advice is, find out what your colors are on your horse. People say they know, but they don't. If you're at the track, it's in the program, and their programs are printed in color, and they have
The little jockey body and head.
a tan
Yep.
top.
Yep.
They have purple.
Yep.
They have, I hope they don't have anything like this.
No houndstooth.
Yeah, but they have colors. Like Catholic Boy, he runs on Saturday. He's all black with a white collar.
Wow. That's cute.
No, that's a joke. But anyhow, I'm just working that one out. But
Knowing that we are both
But-
Catholics, so that's pretty funny.
so the thing is, know what your colors are. Then when you watch the race on television or at the track, you can follow your horse.
Sure, that's a great idea.
But do it at 10 minutes. They show all the races in all the horses in the post parade. So watch them go through, and even if you don't know who you like, but you see one you like, and he's wearing like the Claiborne gold color,
Yeah.
just all gold,
Know it.
then you can follow that horse, and you really have more fun watching the race if you can watch your horse.
If we could get those jockeys to wear the light up lights, that they put on
Yeah.
costumes so that they could just be illuminated as they go around the track, that would be the most fun.
Do you all think that the absence of Justify has taken any of the shine off of this Breeders' Cup?
Well, it's disappointing that he's not going to be in the race because, as American Pharaoh did, he bowed out with his last race was the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he won, and he went on his stallion duty, and that was great. And the same thing was planned for Justify, but he injured his ankle.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times injuries are fake. They want to get him off the track and get him into the barn. But this, when you get an ankle injury, a human or a horse, you just have to let it heal.
You do.
And so the horse got hurt in July. So to give him 2 months off would be late August, September.
Yeah.
And then he needed a prep race and he needed to get back in training, and there wasn't time.
Yeah.
So they didn't run him. I don't think he would have to win myself. I don't know. I like Pharaoh better myself.
Do you really?
I love Justify, and I talked to a young man named Clint Glasscock, who's one of the owners of Justify, not too long back, and he just spoke about this horse in such glowing terms. And
well, he certainly should.
His personality, just about
Yeah.
the actual animal that he is, and the fact that he was able to do such a spectacular thing. 2 Triple Crowns, not quite back to back, but within a couple of years of each other, it's really amazing because we've had such a long wait to get to this particular time. And so I love him, and I was looking forward to seeing him run. And I'm sorry that he's not going to be. But the first thing is always the horse's health and the horse's safety. And I'm glad that they're honoring that.
The man who the straw that stirs the drink is Bob Baffert.
The straw
He
that
is
stirs the drink.
amazing in that he just keeps coming up with one really good horse after another. I'm ready to say that I think he may be the greatest horse trainer of all time.
Well, I like him. Not everybody does, and he used to be, kind of a prickly guy. But
Glad you added a few letters on the end of that word.
No, I mean, I do like him because he's cooperated with me for stories, and I wrote about Justify for the Churchill Downs magazine, and he talked to me. We planned it. And I had the wrong number, and it was his wife Jill, and she arranged me to switch me over, and they had switched phones somehow. We talked. He was there. I talked to him for my Derby book, and he's very, very good to me. So I like him. But what I think is really great about Baffert is he grew up with horses, and he really understands horses.
Yeah.
I think as glamorous as he is, and he's got those wealthy owners. One reason his horses win is he's got the best horses, and you don't get those by getting lucky. You get them by buying them.
Yeah, and you don't get them by being a second-rate trainer either. Courtney Lee Bennett, fabulous vet in town, actually a hospice vet, is watching us. Gareth Jones, who's a terrific flamenco guitar player. Terry Holland, gosh, I haven't seen that name for a while. David and Janet Hedricks, thanks so much for joining us. We are live at Pat's Steakhouse, talking to Billy Reed and Bill Doolittle about Breeders' Cup and other things of fascination to the rest of us. The 2 guys who are sitting here to my left have an incredible historic place in the books of Louisville and really across the country for their sports writing, their knowledge of the sport, their knowledge of the people who have been associated with the sport, and of course the wonderful product that comes out, which is it's all in your writing. And I'm curious to know, what are you writing now? Are you really going to work on a book about the Breeders' Cup?
Not at the moment.
No, not at the moment.
But the next, one book that I want to do is this is the 145th Kentucky Derby, and I just had one that came out in 2015. But we're already thinking about the 150th Derby.
Wow.
And so we want to hit that one. And we have a basketball book that's kind of on hold because of the scandals at U of L.
Yeah.
But, when you were just talking, Tara, and Billy's probably got some, he's written so many books. But I just want to say, you know a lot about the Derby and horses, and don't give yourself as much credit as you deserve. People in the world don't know anything, and people in Louisville know a lot. And you're one of those who's covered it. You know the names. He says Bob Baffert, and you nod.
Yeah, I love him.
He mentioned American Pharaoh, and you remember when he went out. You know a lot about racing, and so does people who live here, or people around the country who follow horse racing. They know too.
Well, it's a nice compliment coming from you, but I got to tell you my American Pharaoh story. I was in Atlanta when he was racing, and he was at the Belmont. So like all good Kentuckians, I get choked up even telling the story. But I go and I'm like, turn the television on at the bar at this workout place that my sister had taken me to. I'm like, turn on the TV, turn on the TV. And my phone was I was watching the race on my phone, but it was delayed. So I get the phone, up in front of me, and I'm like, turn on the big screen. I really have to see this horse because he's running for the Triple Crown. And the bartender thought I was crazy. I look up at the screen, and he's parading already and being covered with adulation, and he's still running on my phone. And I remember bursting into tears, and he's like, what's wrong with you? And I said, we've been waiting for a Triple Crown all of my adult life. This is the greatest gift that we could ever be given.
Do you know what? You remember what happened right after the race is over?
Yes.
And the horses go around to the backside to get
Yep.
pulled up, and they came back.
Yep.
And Victor Espinoza, who was riding them, was with the outrider, and they usually stop
Yes.
at where the horses come out on the track and where the winner's circle is. But he paraded the horse all the way to the very end of the Belmont Park
Yes.
grandstand, so everybody could cheer for him. Now, I had not seen that at Belmont too much, but at the Derby,
Yeah.
they start applauding all the way back, and that's when I get choked up.
Yeah.
Yes.
They always applaud for the Derby winner, and I'm going to here's my quiz. What's the biggest round of applause that I ever heard for any Derby winner? And you don't really know right offhand which one I'm going to say.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, if you could guess what jockey it was for.
I'm going to guess Pat Day and Lily T. No?
But way back, it was Calvin.
Oh, wow, Burrell.
When Calvin won the first time, they gave him, he was crying, and he was coming back, it was on TV,
Yeah.
and the crowds were waving and everything. When he won the second time, they were really cheering for him. I have never seen that whole grandstand, which is a quarter of a mile long plus, everybody was standing and they were all looking down at him.
And this is after our dear friend Donna Brothers has interviewed them at the end of the
Yeah.
race, which is what I always look forward to.
Why don't you do that?
I couldn't kick her off her horse, but I'd give anything to do it. Hello, sir.
Hey, Don, I just want to check on you on anything.
We're good. We're doing a live broadcast. Come on in here and say hi.
Oh,
What's your name?
Alfred.
Hi, Alfred. Have you been at Pat's for a long time?
35 years.
35.
Yeah.
You know this guy then, don't you, Mr.
Reed.
Reed? And this is Mr. Doolittle, and
Hi,
I'm
Alfred.
Tara
Hi.
Bassett. Nice to meet you, sir. Pleasure. Thank you for checking on us. We appreciate
If
you.
you need anything, just let me know.
We appreciate that. We're probably going to be done here in about 10 minutes on our
got
live
Fall
cast.
City?
Fall City.
No, I don't need a Fall City. I'm just joking.
Bring him a Fall City.
Maybe a nice Irish draft.
Yeah, that'd be
A
great.
nice
That'd be
Irish
great.
draft.
Yeah. Well, a harp would be good.
Okay.
I love this.
I don't go for the Guinness. It's just
I know,
too
it's a
dark.
little stout.
I used it in my car for a long time, like motor oil.
Yes, of
but
course.
I quit now.
And you pour Coke on your battery, too, to get rid of the battery acid. So we've got Billy Reed and we've got Bill Doolittle, and they are my captives for the last 15 minutes or so of this broadcast. Take it from Tara's Wagon Wednesday. We're at Pat's Steakhouse on Brownsboro Road, which is legendary. As you can tell, we have someone who's been waiting tables here for 35 years.
Yeah.
It's great. I bumped in here. He didn't know what we were doing.
Well, he's checked in several times, just standing in the doorway, just saying, and I'm just giving him the thumbs up and making sure they're okay. And Michelle, who got us in here and got us set up and got us our Cokes and water and chips, we appreciate. And of course, Pat, just a fabulous guy. And I always love coming over here and I actually, for many years, believe it or not, would sit in my car across the street and just watch as the people came in, because you always saw really big names darkening the door of Pat's Steakhouse.
Yeah.
Denny Crum loves this place,
Yeah.
and he was here many, many years, and I love the fact that we have become, in this particular little room, part of that history, and knowing that Shug McGahee, as we said at the beginning, and Bob Baffert, there comes your Irish.
And it's on the house.
Okay, well, thank
Oh
you.
my gosh.
Chelsea, you need anything?
I'm great. Thank you so much,
Mr. Reed, you
Albert.
Okay?
I'm fine, thank
That's an
you.
Irish pale. Enjoy.
That's pretty cool. An
Okay.
Irish pale ale. Cheers to you. Here's my empty cup of Coca-Cola, which I never drink.
Well, I'm not going to drink this whole thing in one
Just drink
gulp.
some of it.
Go for it.
No, I tell you, I
Take
don't.
a sip.
I don't chug dark beer.
It's so beautiful.
Well, I will drink it.
It's beautiful.
You know, I traveled for a
that.
long time, and any time I'd go to a new town, I hated to eat in franchise restaurants.
Yeah, I don't.
And
do
I would
that.
always try to seek out the local place that was like Pat's Steakhouse.
Exactly.
And I still, when I have guests in town, this is the first place I think about.
Sue Knable, who's watching us, says cheers.
Put
Put them up there.
This does taste pretty good. It's
Sue
not,
Knable goes
it's
to
not
church
Guinness.
with us.
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does. It's not Guinness. No,
something else.
it's pale ale. What did
It's
you
not
ask
pale.
for?
I mean,
Harp?
if that color, here's the quiz for the home
Smithwick.
video audience. Is this pale
Oh, I thought that's what Albert said.
pill?
Pill. Oh, is that like Pilsner?
I think. I don't know. I'm
See,
not
I don't
really.
drink. I don't drink. I
Oh,
don't
you
know.
missed it.
I don't drink. No, I just stopped. I didn't miss it, but you know that's the thing. So we have a few minutes left, and I want to get a couple of things on the record here. About 9 minutes left. Billy, are you going to be going to the Breeders' Cup, or is it something? Do you still go to the track? Do you still love it, even though you're not actively covering it for a news outlet?
Well, I still do stuff for Wave 680 Radio with Drew Diener.
Oh, fun.
And we're going to be out there next Tuesday morning. And I really haven't decided yet about actually going to the races. As I've gotten older, I don't enjoy large crowds.
Yeah.
And it's so much, and with the Twin Spires account, it's just so easy to sit at home and bet. But I don't know if the weather is nice and all that. They may tug me out there on Saturday.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
How about you, Mr.
I'll
Dude?
be out tomorrow
Yeah.
and Saturday and Sunday because my favorite thing now is I grew up being just a bettor and going to the races in the afternoons. And Kerry Gold, Rick Cushing, and I would go all the time. But now I really like to go to the backside and watch the horses work.
Absolutely.
And of course, the horses are in next week's Breeders' Cup or whenever they work a week ahead of time.
Yes.
So they're going to be out on the track in the mornings at 7:30, and I'll be out there with my little stopwatch and clocking a few. And sometimes you pick one. But I have a friend, Kathy Abrams, who is a horse owner, and she likes to drive me. So because she likes horses, and she just picks me up, and we go to the track, and we go around all the barns, and wear boots and step in mud puddles.
I
and
love
have
that.
a great time.
That's the most fun of all.
Yeah, and I think that's.
Why do
that's
you
what
take
you
your
were-
stopwatch?
That's why. Oh, I clock horses.
You don't trust the official clockers?
Well, I do. I do. I really do. But what happened in the old days? You couldn't. And of course, they ran one horse. They bring out a horse and they go, "Who's that horse?" And you go, "Oh, that's Fiery Star."
Yeah.
And it wasn't really Fiery Star.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, that was the deceptions part of it. Or when they used to work those horses at Keeneland with the candlelight
Yeah.
and the flashlights and stuff, and they get out there on a track like at 3 before anybody's there, and they're gonna work those horses, and they, one guy's down there with some kind of a lantern, and they, and they cook them all up, and yeah. but to go out there in the mornings and clock horses, what I like to do with Derby horses is clock them on the last quarter mile. And the clocking is done by teams of clockers.
Yes.
And so they know, and one guy will say, I got him 5 furlongs in a minute, and somebody will say, I am 59 and 4. That's a fifth of a second difference.
Right.
But what I want to do is clock that last quarter mile, which they do too. But I like to see how a horse finishes.
Yes.
So, anybody can run, any horse can run 4 furlongs, 5 furlongs, a mile, those times, and achieve a time that's pretty close to what everybody else can do. But if they really look spectacular closing,
Yes.
finishing up, that's the horses you want.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we've got a couple of minutes. November the 2nd and 3rd, by the way, next weekend are the dates of the Breeders' Cup, and you have to get your tickets in advance. You can't walk out there. You might be able to get an infield ticket, but you can't walk out there and expect to get a great seat.
Well, you can get in the
get
track.
a seat,
Tracks
You can get into the track.
There's no such thing as a racetrack that's sold.
No, of course not.
I don't
of
want.
course not.
I don't want anybody to think you can't go
But
to
the
the races.
great seats are selling really fast, and I'm watching the
Billy,
ticking.
they couldn't have a
tick, tick,
racetrack
tick,
that wasn't open, could they?
No.
So the second and third, and I tell you what, there've been. I think Churchill Downs has invested something like, I think I read this somewhere, $65 million into the track. Does that sound right? Somewhere around $65 million.
Well,
investment.
they've done 1 million additions. What's really neat about the recent one, I mentioned the parking. When they did the most recent round, they built all those huge concrete monoliths out there, and it hasn't looked good, I don't think, for 10 years. But it's starting to look good now. They've got the new entrance built. They put some green awnings on the building. The place is actually, and there's up at the top of the stretch, there's a new patio up there. That's really not very expensive for the Derby. Overlooks the starting gate, and you can see the whole race, and it's great, and that's not very expensive. The track is really starting to look pretty good.
Good. I like that.
I mean, it's been added on to so many times that it's always looked sort of added on to.
It's been added on to.
Keeneland can add something on and you never notice it.
It looks great.
It's like it's been there forever.
Yeah.
Well, they use architects.
But Churchill's will do this and they'll do that, and it's like like somebody took an erector set and went crazy or something.
It's massive. I mean, I drive out there and I'm just amazed. Okay, so
You want to hear one fact?
Yes, and then I have to say two people who are on with us: Jason Ashley Gardner, who is awesome. He's part of Strange Fruit on NPR, and Angela Lead, our Republican mayoral candidate, is watching us today. She wants to get her picks, obviously, for Breeders' Cup too.
Well, I'm a Democrat. I'm sorry, I can't help her.
She's really nice, though. I have to tell you, I
Actually,
like
I
her
think
a
she
lot.
probably is pretty nice.
She is a very nice woman. She's very smart too. She's an engineer, in case you didn't know that, and she's been a great Metro Council representative too. And I consider her a friend, so that's nice. Okay, what did you want to say?
They've added onto the track at Churchill Downs since 1875. Well, the grandstand's there now. It used to be on the other side. This is 1894.
Yes.
Since 1894, they've added onto that track almost every year or every 2 or 3 years. They've put something else on it, taken something down, built a new thing. There have been 1 million additions to that track. But the racetrack itself
Remains
has
the
not
same.
moved 1 inch since 1875.
Well, I've got to close the show with this, and I know you guys will cooperate because a month or two ago now, which is it's amazing that it's been that long, but we lost a legend in the racing industry in John Asher. And I already told my story of getting my first assignment in any kind of media from him when he allowed me to go out and cover the 1984 Derby from Millionaire's Row. And I was just astonished and excited and got to be on NBC Radio Network, and it was just the coolest experience of my life. So let's just share, to close out, our favorite John Asher story.
You got one? I got one.
Yeah, go on.
Go for it, Billy.
There was one year on Oaks Day where a very severe weather warning came through, and they had to evacuate the infield.
Yes.
Everybody
I
had to
remember
leave.
that.
They had to go through the tunnels.
Yeah.
So when everybody had left, John was on top of the grandstand with his binoculars, just checking to see that it was clear.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he sees the door to a porta potty start to open. And this guy stumbles out, and he looks around, and he just tucks back in.
Everybody's gone. Something went wrong.
He had passed out in the porta potty.
Oh, Lord.
Can you imagine that?
I cannot imagine.
But John, the way he told that story.
John saw him.
Yeah, but John, when he first came to Louisville, he kind of sought me out because, he loved racing, and we became very dear friends, and he was such a nice guy.
Yeah, super nice guy.
I mean, and I was just always happy to see something good happen to John.
Yeah, a very loyal friend too.
He was an ambassador of racing, in particular the Kentucky Derby. The first time I ever met him was just bumped into him on the backside before a Derby long ago when he was a reporter for Wave, and he had his little tape recorder.
Yes.
I don't know, you probably always saw him do it. He always carried it around. It's about this size.
Yes.
And had a microphone,
Yeah.
and he would interview you and he stuff, and then put those things together and won Eclipse Awards for doing it.
Yep.
And I didn't really exactly know who he was. I'd seen him on TV as a regular reporter, but not anything to do with horse racing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know a lot about this. And he goes, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to get in with the Derby.
Isn't that amazing?
And he did.
And who would
He
have
not
ever
only got
known?
he not only got in with it, he became part of it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that there's anybody who better represents the Kentucky Derby. And
Yeah.
And I hope that Churchill Downs can carry on with the same kind of integrity and inventiveness and extraordinary
friendliness.
extraordinary everything, charisma that John used to exhibit. And we miss him so much, and I particularly missed him today when I started to think about doing this show. But I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to be on with us. Thank you. Just kisses and hugs.
Enjoyed it.
For giving me your valuable time. And I know a lot of people were able to enjoy it. And as we will be passing this around, people are going to be sharing it. You're going to see a whole lot more people tuned in. And I'm going to put it up on YouTube so anybody who wants to can see it, even if you're not on Facebook, like some people I know named Bill Doolittle. And thank God Billy Reed is. So thanks to wonderful friends Pat, we appreciate you from Pat's Steakhouse, and thanks Michelle, and thanks Albert for coming up and checking on us. And you all have a wonderful, wonderful Breeders' Cup. I'll be back on Monday talking to J.P. Davis from the Fun for the Arts.